about strange bedfellows. A shocking report new from the Wall Street Journal says that President Obama sent a secret letter to Iran's supreme leader, asking for the country's help in the fight against ISIS. But is Iran really who the U.S. should be turning to? Here now. Chris Harmer from the Institute for the Study of War and Stephen Yates, former deputy assistant to Vice President Cheney. It seems it's not the first letter. These guys are kind of pen pals. That the president is on his fourth letter. Stephen, I mean, is this the right way to go about this?
Well, it's not unusual for presidents to use letters as a way to try to conduct some kind of secret diplomacy. I think what's most troubling about this one is the content of the letter and basically the content of the pitch, where we had President Obama not that many years ago saying Assad must go, and now writing a letter to the Ayatollah in Iran saying, let's work together and I promise that we won't target any Syrian government officials and your friend Assad can stay. I think that's a dramatic change in strategy, and the content of the letter is a real problem.
Right, because we have a congressional source told Fox News that this kind of screws, and they didn't use that word, everything up, Chris. So how do they fix this now?
Well, you can't fix if the policy itself is flawed. There's nothing to be fixed. They got to go back to the source of the policy and fix that. The idea that somehow Assad is off the hook here is just inconceivable to me. This is the man who is the original sin in Syria. Syria was listed as a state sponsor of terror in 1975. The Assad regime has been a state sponsor of terror all along. They've never been a reliable negotiating partner. They've never been a partner for peace. So the idea that they get off the hook entirely, that's the problem. The fact that the president is talking to the supreme leader of Iran is not the problem. The problem is the policy itself. We can fight ISIS all we want in Syria, and we should. We should try to destroy ISIS kinetically. That's a good idea. But if we do that without addressing the core problem of the Assad regime, we're just going to displace the misery further. We're not solving anything.
And speaking of, President Obama's letter to Iran is raising more than a few eyebrows on Capitol Hill. The House Armed Services Committee is set to hold a hearing on the U.S. strategy against ISIS next week. So, Stephen, what should it be at this point? I mean, someone has to have a plan to tackle this.
Well, clearly what's been done to date hasn't been sufficient, and it hasn't really been articulated very well. And when's the last time you heard the president get up and give a clear message to the American people about what the threat is, what the mission is, why they should believe in it, and how we'll know when it's done? So we really need leadership. Absent presidential leadership, it's hard. So Congress needs to be asking these kinds of questions to push them about what is the mission, what are the tools, when do we know it's won, and if it's not working, what are the alternatives? All things that would have been ideal if they'd have thought through before they got in.
Right, all questions that should have been asked moons ago. All right, Chris, you got to add this to the list of reasons to never cruise again. According to the Associated Press, potential jihadi fighters are using cruise ships to reach conflict zones in Syria and Iraq. I mean, that's almost brilliant on their part, if you ask me.
Well, it is brilliant, and one of the things that terrorist organizations have become very effective at is getting their fighters into the fight while bypassing traditional immigration policies. Hearing about the cruise ship element of this gave me just sort of flashbacks to my 20-year career as a Navy helicopter pilot, when we would spend a lot of time tracking maritime shipping for exactly this reason. It's not as if the Islamic Republic of Iran is going to load up its ships with terrorists and float them over to Gaza. What they do is they use commercial shipping lines. That commercial cargo might be 95, 98% legitimate and 2% illegitimate. All these terrorists that are trying to get into the ISIS heartland are doing is using a game plan that was established originally by Iran.
It's crazy, though. But, Stephen, they are instituting something called iCheckIt. Airlines can now check passenger information off the Interpol databases. Is that going to help?
Well, it might help modestly. But really what we have is we squeeze the balloon in one area and they go to other ways to get in. And, you know, we haven't really set up any kind of a clear strategy. Are we cordoning off and containing this problem? That hasn't really been articulated. And so the cruise ship weakness is very, very important. Of course, heaven forbid something happen on a cruise ship would be terrible also. But it's just one of many, many weaknesses in the current approach.
Unfortunately, I wish I could have you both attend the meetings next week. Thank you, though, for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, heading into